Now, I speculate that I'll probably be making a number of videos around this subject and around the subject of Brexit, because there is a lot to say. It's an important issue. I've deliberately been putting it off actually until this point, i.e., until we were formally out, just to make sure that there wasn't going to be another delay. Um, for this one, I want to talk about Europe versus the EU. I think this is extremely important and it's often overlooked, but it is extremely important in terms of language. So let's be quite clear about this. The European Union is a body consisting of most, but not all, European states, which was founded on the principles of trade and economic cooperation, and has increasingly become about political union, which is one of the big controversies around it. But that's the European Union. It's an organisation headquartered in Brussels and Strasbourg, and it's that's what it is. Europe is a landmass. It's a geographic continent with a unique culture, with cultures, of course. That's what Europe is. So it's very important that we distinguish between Europe and the EU. Now, I've noticed that both sides of the debate, both Leave and Remain, and I do hope those terms become more archaic, but I'll use them just for now. Um, they both say that we're leaving Europe. They say like as of 11 p.m. tonight we're out of Europe, and the press do it, both left and right. Now you might say, "Oh, it's just semantics; it doesn't really matter." I would say it does matter a great deal. It's symbolic. It's significant because we are not leaving Europe. And I'm not saying that in some sentimental sense, like, oh, to Europe still in our hearts. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking, we're actually not leaving Europe, the continent. Unless there's another ice age and the Dogger Bank freezes over, the geographic features of Western Europe aren't going to change. I think it might be like a millimetre a year or something, but unless there's some giant tectonic plate, earthquake, causes a rift in the North Sea, then the island of Great Britain and Ireland, those islands are going to stay put. It's not going to be the geographic dimensions of Europe are not going to change radically anytime soon. Politically, depending on what happens in Scotland and Catalonia, yeah. But even then, by the way, the Scottish nationalists can, stir up as much vitriol as they want about Britain, but whether they like it or not, they will always share the island of Britain. So they can't, Great Britain, they can't do anything about that. Likewise, so when I hear some Eurosceptics say they hate Europe, I wish to be specific about we hate the EU. And I've had this debate where people say, oh, but it is about the EU. Okay, we'll specify that. It might sound pedantic, but I do think it matters. And the fact of the matter is, we are culturally interlinked to the rest of this continent, irrefutably. We are an island nation, and like Japan, there are some similarities there, but in terms of being an island nation, somewhat isolated from the rest of the continent. But nevertheless, our history is absolutely interlinked. Absolutely. It sounds almost like a cliche now, but if you look at the migrations of people who've come to this island over the last 2 millennia, I mean, the Romans, the Celts originating in Central Europe, not as is often assumed in the Celtic nations, but in Central Europe they migrated westwards. Um, the Saxons, the Jutes, the Angles, the Vikings, although their permanent settlement was less than the others. Um, the Normans, this is, and then later on, the Hanoverians, although that's more a royal issue. But the point is, our history is absolutely interlinked with the rest of Europe. We are Europeans, and I am proud to call myself a European. I don't see that as a political statement. I see it as just a statement of fact. Um, And even leading Eurosceptics know this. Nigel Farage knows this. I'm sure he would agree with me. Often Eurosceptics have said they admire Europe, the continent. They admire the fact that this continent has produced so much. It's just endless how much this continent has contributed to the world's cultural legacy. Um, in terms of, well, where do you begin? Democracy in Greece, in the Greek state. And granted, there's not quite democracy as we know today, but it is the foundation of Western civilization. So I think that this needs to be understood. Europe and the EU are not the same thing. And journalists have a responsibility to use the correct language, so do politicians. They have a responsibility not to conflate that we're leaving Europe. And the Europeans have said this. No, the EU has said this. They need to stop doing this because Brexit isn't about Britain versus Europe. Brexit is an internal issue between one European state and the organisation of the European Union. That's what it's about. So I really feel it's important to emphasise that. Anyway, I've made my point. This should be obvious. But people who say that I'm not a European, I'm British, they need to look at our history. If they're such patriots, they need to look at our history. Saying that Britain isn't Europe is sheer ignorance. Saying that Britain's not the EU is not a fact. And that's that. But and I would also say this to people who are really they voted Remain and they're devastated about this. At least take that. We're still Europeans and we haven't left Europe. Okay? Now you might say, but the EU is representative of everything I admire about Europe. Others might say it isn't, but we haven't left Europe, so at least take that with you. At least if you're feeling miserable right now, at least consider that. We are still in Europe. We haven't left that. We're not going to stop visiting France and Germany. There may be issues around the visa, and those are all things that that certainly I was worried about. But fundamentally, nothing's changed in the geography. Politically, yeah, things will change, but as much as we are and should be close to the Commonwealth countries, I believe we need to really promote trade and cooperation even more with Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and yes, continue to have strong ties to the United States without being subservient. That's all very important, but it is absolutely essential that post Brexit we retain close ties to the rest of Europe. Clearly, some things are going to change. They have to change because we've left some of the mechanisms. And as Ursula von der Leyen said, it simply won't be the same in that sense. But that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be goodwill on both sides to have good relations, because this is in both sides' interest. So I would say that people like Nigel Farage shouldn't be too smug about Brexit. I mean, he's already coming out with, the EU's frightened of the British as competitors. You've done it, Nigel. We're out. To me, that's just starting to look like gloating. It's not just celebrating; it's actually starting to gloat. That is not in the spirit of cooperation that people like him said that this is all about. That we will leave, we will be independent, but we'll work closely with our European neighbours, or other European neighbours. Anyway, that's perhaps for another video. So yeah, that's it. Europe and the EU are not the same thing. We've left the EU, we have not left Europe. And anyone who says we've left Europe, whatever their politics are, whether it be Remain people being pessimistic and saying, "Oh, we're out, we've left Europe," we haven't left Europe, and whether it be Brexiteers or Eurosceptics saying, "Oh, we've now independence, we've left Europe," no, we've independence, arguably, but we have not left Europe, the continent. So that needs to be understood. And incidentally, it was a Brexiteer friend of mine who first pointed this out. Hello. It's obvious, but yeah, he pointed out a map of Europe 2016, 2020, no difference. And it isn't going to change.